Hello and welcome back to the Odds Now YouTube channel for another edition of the EFL Betting Show. Once again, technical issues have soured my hopes of broadcasting this show live on X. I promise you I'm going to get to the bottom of those gremlins at some stage. But at the moment, as an alternative, viewers of YouTube, you have us back on your screens. Myself, Matt Hill, and my regular co-host, Gab Sutton, EFL aficionado. And we're here to take a look ahead to another full weekend slate across England's second, third and fourth tier, and hopefully point you in the direction of some interesting bets and maybe some winners. We didn't really do that very well last week, it must be said. I came off last week's show full of confidence about our selections. I really like the look of them. Fortunately, only one did the business for us. There were some near misses, but ultimately, Gab, it all came down to Barrow, didn't it, doing the job?
I know, who would have thought? Yeah, well done to Barrow, well done to Andy Wing. Good instant impact from him there at Holker Street. A couple where, you're sort of inches away from my point of view. Notts County were beating Bromley going into the last 20 minutes or so. Bromley got the equaliser. Stockport beat Crawley 2-0, but they didn't get the third. There wasn't the third goal in the game that would have made that a winner. So it's not like we're a million miles away, but just came up a little bit short, unfortunately.
No, my favourite bet of the weekend was Sunderland to beat Plymouth 2-0, but fair play to Plymouth. They took the game to Sunderland and got themselves a point. So just got to take those ones on the chin, I'm afraid. But yes, Barrow, it's got to be the first time ever in my life I've celebrated a Barrow victory. And will I return to the well this weekend? You'll have to stay tuned to find out. But that was a pretty big hint, wasn't it, to be fair? Well, we're going to kick off with Gab's first selection. You're in the championship here, Gab. I'm not in the championship at all this week. So you're our only second tier input here. You're going for Luton to beat Sheffield Wednesday. The price on offer at the moment.
Oh, no, sorry. Sheffield
You're going for Sheffield Wednesday to beat Luton. That would explain things. So let's reverse that while I look to alter that banner. Sheffield Wednesday to beat Luton. Now, Gab, I was about to chastise you for putting Luton up here because I couldn't get my head around that. It's been a tough old season for the Hatters. This makes a lot more sense now. And suddenly, I feel like we're going to be agreeing. Sheffield Wednesday to beat Luton at a much more sensible price of 23-20. Tell me why this caught your eye.
Yeah, I think this caught my eye because I've had a lot of faith in Sheffield Wednesday. I think their performance levels all season have been at a pretty solid sort of 7 out of 10 level, and certainly relative to the squad that they've got, they're massively overperforming thanks to the brilliant work of Danny Rowe. I love the way that they've got a consistent shape but have some flexibility within that shape, so they always kind of build up in a 3-2-5 sort of shape, if you like, but then where the players are within that shape can sort of change. So that's a lovely kind of balance between players knowing their roles and responsibilities, but also having ways of keeping opponents guessing. So yeah, I think that shows how good a coach Danny Rowe is. I like that they never panic and shoot from distance. They always back themselves to create clear-cut chances, and I think that's serving them well this season. So yeah, I'm happy to back Sheffield Wednesday, despite some of the concerns that I have about them off the field. I think on the field they're looking pretty good, and Luton, it's more the other way around. If anything, I do still, broadly speaking, have a lot of trust in the people running Luton Town, but I don't have a huge amount of trust in them on the field at the moment, and that's why I'm happy to go with Sheffield Wednesday at 23-20, which again I think is a pretty good price.
Yeah, not been a great start for Matt Bloomfield since he was controversially kind of poached away from Wickham. It's been a challenge. He hasn't really managed to arrest the slide of Luton. And we talk about the club being in a great place off the pitch. I think that's been the case for many years now. And always been sort of held up as a model for other EFL clubs on a budget who want to punch above their weight. Now they're in this period of adversity, obviously very reluctantly having to get rid of Rob Edwards due to results. They are still firmly in this relegation battle, Gab. We would think that they would have enough quality, enough nous to get out of it. But are you starting to genuinely fear for their prospects at the bottom?
I am, yeah. I think... into the new stadium, which is understandable because this is very much a long-term project for them. Like, the new stadium could serve them for another 100 years or more. So that's something and Kenilworth Road is a very old ground, and probably has its limitations in the modern era. So I think the new stadium is
sad to see it go. I hate seeing grounds like that go personally. But
yeah, exactly.
I know you've got to move on. You have to move on.
Yeah, you're sort of walking up past people's gardens and over the washing lines and all that kind of thing. So there is definitely a sentimental appeal to it. So Luton Town are basically putting a lot of their investment in the new stadium. It's kind of come a little bit at the cost of on the pitch and rejuvenating the squad after relegation from last season. And I think, yeah, it's probably a squad that's needed a bit more than actually. And I think probably they went into the season thinking they had enough. They had a top 6 squad and they wouldn't need to really spend very much, but actually that's proving not to be the case. They needed to freshen things up a lot more. But one thing I did want to look at before we move on is kind of looking at the different the coaches in that game, because on the one hand, you got Danny Röhl, who's worked at Bayern Munich, who's assisted the German national team and has this brilliant elite coaching background. And Matt Bloomfield did a fantastic job at Wycombe Wanderers. But you're really looking at a good 12 months because the first year in charge actually didn't go that great. So you're looking at a pretty small sample size, I would say, when it comes to Matt Bloomfield, whereas Danny Röhl has built this incredible coaching career over 20 odd years. So that's where I would sort of maybe say Danny Röhl from a coaching perspective might have a bit of an edge over Matt Bloomfield. So yeah, I'm going to go with Sheffield Wednesday for this one.
Okay. I could ask you more about Luton, but I don't want to go too far off piece. But yeah, I mean, are we going as far as questioning that appointment of Matt Bloomfield at this early stage, or?
Yeah, I mean, I can see why they've gone for him because this is someone who is doing brilliantly in League One. I don't want to underestimate that at all. But I still have faith in people like Gary Sweet and Mick Harford who are running the club because I think they're good football people who care about Luton Town. I think they maybe need to rebalance their priorities a little bit. So hopefully the additions of Tello Asgard and Milanic Ali, who they brought in towards the end of the window,
eye-catching signings, yeah,
make a difference. Field would have been the one that I would have gone for, but at the same time, he has done a good job at Wycombe, so I can see why he caught their eye. But in terms of Saturday, I'm just very struck by Danny Röhl's sort of coaching pedigree and him maybe having the edge, perhaps over somebody like Bloomfield.
Okay, well, we'll leave that one there then. Sheffield Wednesday to beat Luton certainly makes a lot more sense to me. Yeah, 23-20, the best price there with Betfred. Well, my first pick, as I say, no championship from me this week, straight into League One. And I'm going to take a chance on Wrexham to bounce back here. They're playing Crawley. I want to back them to win with over 2.5 goals in the match. This is available at 2-1 with various outlets. Gab, you tried a similar angle last week, taking on Crawley with the overs and Stockport, and it finished 2-0 to Stockport. There was a real gulf in class between the two sides. Just unfortunately, Stockport couldn't go and get that third goal. But Crawley, I think they barely created even half a goal's worth of XG in that game. It really was men against boys. And I'll give some credit to Rob Elliott. He's a manager that I like, and I think he's got a big future ahead of him. But he's inherited a tough job here, hasn't he? He wants to play a certain style of football, and he's doing it with a squad, which we've said a few times this season, are quite possibly not at the level. So it's a challenge. He's gone back to basics a little bit in the last couple of games and got some decent results. A first win in a long, long time in midweek against Mansfield. So credit to them for that. But I do have my concerns about Mansfield recently. Also lost to Cambridge as well. Maybe their season's in danger of just petering out into a little bit of mid-table nothingness. So I need to see a little bit more from Crawley in the coming weeks before I'm convinced that they're fully on like an upward trajectory. I still have them in my mind as real strong candidates for relegation, unfortunately. And I think they've come up against a Wrexham side here who have been underperforming a little bit in recent weeks. They were stunned at home by Stevenage, lost 3-2. But to be honest, I think that 3-2 maybe flattered Wrexham even. I thought Stevenage were really good, worthy winners. That was a Stevenage side that had scored only 4 times away from home all season. Then they scored 3 on the same night. So a little bit of a freak result. But I don't think a complete freak result in terms of, Wrexham, as I say, they've not been at their best for some time. And I was interested in Phil Parkinson's comments after the game, questioning the attitude of some of his players and saying that he would try and give them a shake-up this week and select a team that were going to fight for the badge. I thought they were quite dramatic comments, really, when you start questioning your players' work rate. It's one thing to question their, performance level technically, but to say that they're not putting the effort in, it's a big claim, isn't it? And I think that to me seems like an attempt from a very experienced manager to just give his squad a rocket up the backside a little bit here. And I think it's a good team to be giving them. I think it's quite a clever ploy from Parkinson, because he's probably looking at the next game and thinking, if I can get them fired up for Crawley, it's a very winnable game, because as good as Crawley have been, as improved as they've been in the last couple of weeks, they do leak goals left, right and centre, generally speaking. We've seen them ship 3, 4, 5 on numerous occasions this season. And I feel like this could be a game where Wrexham could take it by the scruff of the neck early. If they score early, this could be a real sort of chance to draw a line in the sand with a rocky couple of weeks and get this promotion bid back on track. And I do think also by playing with the over 2.5 goals, you also keep in the possibility that if Crawley do get ahead, and they do have some good attacking threats, then any kind of Wrexham victory, you'll be getting at 2-1 there. So I like the different angles that it covers. It's not that I've been ultimately that impressed with Wrexham, but I just feel like the price here is quite attractive when I put all those circumstances that I mentioned together. So that's why I'm leaning that way. Gab, I guess I would ask you, firstly, do you see where I'm coming from there? And secondly, what are your thoughts about Wrexham's promotion bid? Because it has been a rocky few weeks.
Yeah, I don't know if I see Wrexham playing Championship football next season. But one thing I would like to see from them in Saturday's game is for them to go 2 up top, because the way that Phil Parkinson likes to play, it's number one, very direct, and number two, very crossing heavy. So basically the whole game plan is about getting Ryan Barnett and James McLean, their 2 wing backs, very high and wide, so that they can get the ball at any opportunity and they can fizz the ball into the box. Now, based on those 2 things, you've got to have 2 up top, because there's no point having 4 midfielders if you're not really going to use the midfield in the first place. That would make more sense if you're more of a possession-based side that want to dominate the midfield. But that's not really how Wrexham want to play. So for me, I think Wrexham need to get Paul Mullin, start Paul Mullin and either Stephen Fletcher or Ollie Palmer, maybe start with Mullin and Palmer, and basically get crosses into the box. I imagine, given Mullin's impact from the bench against Stevenage, Mullin's probably going to come into the 11 for one of the midfielders, especially against a Crawley side that can be vulnerable defensively. I would go all in on a front 2 and sort of back yourselves to sort of expose the Crawley defence that's conceded nearly 2 goals per game this season, and I think can be got at. Even I don't think you need to be an incredible attacking side to unlock Crawley Town, because of the way that they play, they can leave.
No, and I tell you the one that sticks in my memory, Gab, and they have improved a bit since then, but Leyton Orient on Boxing Day absolutely tore them to shreds. I think it finished 3-0, but it should have been about 6 or 7. It was they were just cutting through them at will, and Orient are a great team, as we agree on. But that worried me. That I thought it should not be that easy to play through. And I think Wrexham, for all their struggles, you look at these 2 teams on paper, there's a real gap in quality there. So that is probably my strongest bet of the weekend. That one, 2-1, still available. Wrexham are shortening a little bit, so maybe that price will disappear in the coming 24 hours. We shall see. Back over to you then, Gab. You're in League One as well for your next pick. You're going for Wickham to beat Cambridge. As I say, Cambridge picked up a good result last weekend, but they generally have been struggling this season against a Wickham side who I think have dealt quite well with the loss of their manager, all things told.
Yeah, I think Cambridge are hoping that the signings that they've made, like Ben Stevenson from Portsmouth in midfield and Don Ballard in attack, is going to help strengthen their bid for survival. I'm still not quite sure that I see them making it. I think it's probably more likely that Burton or Shrewsbury make their great escape, personally. But I think that Wickham, 7 points from 3 games under Sam Grace as caretaker, I'm almost thinking from Wickham's point of view, it'd be quite an awkward time to appoint a new manager at at this stage. You'd almost want to go internal until the end of the season and maybe see what Sam Grace can do, because if he's getting the best out of this squad now, and he knows the development, the development players, and he knows the people, then maybe he'd be the one that you'd want sort of leading them into the promotion race. So yeah, it seems like losing Matt Bloomfield hasn't been the enormous blow that maybe could have been anticipated. Sam Grace has sort of done a good job in difficult circumstances. So yeah, I'm willing to go with Wycombe Wanderers, and I think the big one at the moment is Richard Kone, because he's been in phenomenal form, hasn't he? He's just like, I think people are probably caught out that. Yeah, because he was playing in the lower echelons of non-league just over 12 months ago for Athletic Newham. I think it's quite easy to maybe not recognise how good a footballer he is as well as a goal scorer. This isn't a sort of a kind of a Max Watters type situation where somebody's kind of caught a bit of a random purple patch and maybe might struggle to sort of replicate it. I think Richard Kone has got all the ingredients to maybe go on and have a career in the top two divisions. So yeah, Richard Kone, his form at the moment really excites me from a Wycombe point of view, and I think given just very simplistically, Wycombe second in the league, Cambridge are 23rd, and for Wycombe to be close to evens, I think is a brilliant price, even if you're factoring in the fact that Wycombe are the away side. So yeah, I'm very happy to go with Wycombe at 10 to 11.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I know we don't agree on our last picks, but I do agree with you on this one. And Richard Kone, yeah, what more can you say about him? It's just, it's phenomenal. I agree with you. I think he's a championship forward in waiting. He's got all the attributes you want to see. You wonder how these guys get missed for so long, don't you, when there's so much scouting around in this day and age? But fair play to Wycombe. They've unearthed a diamond, and it might just be the diamond that actually gets them over the line in this promotion race. We shall see. Interesting times to come, I think, in that promotion race, definitely. Well, my second pick, I hinted at the start of the show, I am keeping the faith and keeping loyalty to Barrow, who served me so well against Grimsby that I think Gab now owes me a pint. That's a real joy to behold, even if I didn't have any other winners. That was the real winner that we all wanted, wasn't it? And like I say, it's not in my nature to get behind Barrow, really, but couldn't help but be impressed the way they did it against Grimsby. There was a really nice like a display from the fans for Andy Wing when he arrived at Holker Street, sort of showing how the United they were behind him. And it just, as I said, I don't know whether it's because I'm exposed to a lot of Barrow coverage when I'm listening to Carlisle and they're on the same local radio station, but it felt like a club that was just crying out for something positive and something for the fans to unite behind, and that's exactly what they did against Grimsby. They've since played in midweek against Doncaster, falling to a 3-1 defeat, but I don't think there's any shame in that. I think we'd all agree Doncaster, one of the better sides in the division. They'll be hoping to go up automatically. I think that's probably a little bit above Barrow's reach at the moment, competing with the top 5 or 6 sides in the division. But I do think, as I said last week, on the day, this squad is quite a solid mid-table League Two squad. There are some really solid, experienced performers in there. I think Wing is a very functional manager who just it won't be trying to do anything too fancy. He'll be simplifying the game for his players, which is what he did so successfully last week. And it's more about who they come up against and the price here. This is a Newport team in free fall. I know they got a point against Salford last time out, but prior to that, 5 straight defeats. They've been sucked right into this relegation battle. And with my Carlisle hat on, they're one of the teams I'm looking at and thinking we can very feasibly catch alongside maybe Tranmere as well, and possibly Harrogate. But Morecambe obviously are banging there as well. But you'd worry as a Newport fan. I can't see how Newport fans won't be panicking with results and performances. And they got that point at Salford, but Salford had nearly 3 goals worth of XG in that game, and we're also playing the last 20 minutes with 10 men. So there's enough there in that, even though they got the result, to make me think they're still not firing on all cylinders. Another thing with Newport that I would say, and this I might be oversimplifying this, but we've talked often on this show about the importance or lack of in home and away form, and I think we've generally agreed that it does vary from club to club. And there's actually some clubs where playing at home can be a disadvantage because of a potentially touchy crowd or an expectation around the club. I think Newport are a team that really, really, in previous seasons, have had a huge advantage playing at Rodney Parade. It's often quite a terrible pitch. I've been there and witnessed it a few times. Rugby being played on it as well, of course, it doesn't help, particularly in the winter. And normally that's a massive advantage for Newport. They're not making that count this season, which is a massive worry for me. I always think their home form's going to get them out of jail, and it's not really at the moment. So from a Barrow perspective, if they can take the positives from that Doncaster defeat, at 7-5, I'm more than happy to chance that we see a bit more of what we saw against Grimsby and that some of the positives we saw against Doncaster, and they can pile more pressure and concern on Newport. From a Newport perspective, they'd be eyeing this as one of the fixtures that they simply have to get a result in to stop these relegation fears building. But that's easier said than done when you're winless in 6, having lost 5 of them, and confidence is on the floor. So I'm going to side with Barrow here again, with the caveat, as I said last week, that, you know, if they lose, I will enjoy that because I don't really like Barrow that much. But I think at the price is 7-5, and with Newport in the place they are, I'm going to lean that way.
It's interesting that you've said it's based on the price, though, Matt, because I would say that for an away side, given that I take on board what you said about Newport maybe not maximising their home advantage, but broadly speaking, it's still seen as an advantage to be playing at home. At 7-5, if it was, say, Barrow were maybe 9-5, I would say it. You know, yes, that looks great, a really value selection. But 7-5 is still a bit short for me to be backing an away side that's only had one recent victory in terms of, you look, because they were out of form at the back end of Stephen Clements's reign. Okay, they did beat Grimsby 3-0 in Andy Wing's first game, and then they lost to Doncaster. But they've only won one in, I'm not sure what the number is, but it would be one in, you know, a large number of games. So that would be the concern for me, whether 7-5 is actually chunky enough.
So I would say to that you need to divide a line between the past manager and the current manager, really, because I do think that when a club gets into a rut, as Barrow had done, that a new manager really does deserve kind of not to be attributed to that run. So I think when I look at this run of 1 in 15, I'm looking at it more in a run of 1 winning 2 decent performances. I've seen enough improvement there to make me side with it. Now, I would agree with you on the price quote that 7-5 for an away side generally wouldn't be considered or a big chunky price. But I guess I have to say this as well. It's very much an anti-Newport stance and less of a pro-Barrow stance. Last week, it was a pro-Barrow stance. I thought the circumstances of a new manager coming in to relieve and lift the mood was really important. But now I actually look at this and think Newport need to win this game, but I don't think they're in a position to I don't think they have enough confidence here against a Barrow side who will still be. I don't think that defeat in midweek to Doncaster was damaging enough to make them think, oh God, we're really bad again. I think Wing will have taken the positives out of that and said, this is one of the best sides in the division here. We've given them a really good game there, come up short. Let's just keep going with what we're doing. And I think a repeat performance of the last 2 that they've produced would be enough to overcome Newport here. And that's why I think that 7-5, which is obviously implying quite a bit less than a 50% chance of landing, is of value to me. But I take your point about the away and home thing. And I guess time will tell. We shall see. Well, we've only got 1 game left to talk about this week, despite having 2 selections yet to cover. And this is interesting because previously when this has happened on the show, it's because we fancied the same thing. What we've actually done is we've landed on the same game, but the complete opposite selections. So both prices are currently available, 19-20. Either way, it is literally the flip of a coin who wins this according to the market. Obviously, in our little battle last week, I got the nod. I'm hoping to make it 2-0, but we shall see. So the game in question, I won't keep you waiting any longer, is Walsall and Salford. But Gab fancies Walsall to bounce back here at 19-20 from their back-to-back defeats. I've gone the other way and taken Salford or the draw at the exact same price. So I'm going to put you into bat here first, Gab. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why you're backing Walsall.
I think what you've got in Walsall is a team that all season have set incredibly high standards of consistency. in a league in which nobody else has managed to find that level of consistency. I think you've got a team that's had a very consistent best 11. I know that Nathan Lowe on loan from Stoke had been a massive factor, and losing him is obviously going to be a loss. And then, of course, the back-to-back away defeats where, you may be questioning Walsall defensively a little bit more and whether they've got the experience at the back. But I think in terms of the football that Walsall play, they've got a midfield that works as a team. They've got two brilliant wing backs, Liam Gordon, who kind of cuts inside and links up play, and Taylor Allen, who kind of overlaps on the flank. And then on the right hand side, they've got Barnett, who's the lad from Connor Barrett. Sorry, not Barnett. Getting mixed up with the Wrexham lad. Connor Barrett, who's really brings some driving runs and is very sort of glides down the right flank. And then they've got a midfield three that, like Ryan Stirk, who cover Oisin McEntee. They cover one another incredibly well. So I think that when I saw them beat Tranmere 5-1, albeit against, in my opinion, the worst team in the league on current form, I still felt like, even though Nathan Lowe was obviously a very good player and you could see he's a special talent, I didn't feel like they were carried by Nathan Lowe. I felt like they were a good all-round team. So even with those back-to-back defeats, I'm pretty confident that Walsall are going to bounce back. There's a possibility that they concede, that Salford might grab one goal, because I'm not 100% on Walsall defensively, but I think they're a fantastic footballing side, and I back them to create chances and score goals.
Okay. Well said. This is where I'm at with this game. Walsall, obviously, for those who aren't aware, won, I think it was 9 straight to parachute miles clear at the top of League Two, but it's now back-to-back defeats for the Saddlers. They lost 3-0 to Bradford, and then they lost 2-0 in midweek at Fleetwood. So that's 5 goals conceded in 2 games and none scored. This would be a slight worry for me. I feel like this Walsall side, as good as they have been, and I agree, they are one of, if not the best side in the division. I feel like they've been on the correct side of fine margins a lot this season, and I think their buffer at the top of the league is maybe a little bit bigger than it should be, if all was told. And I feel like they've benefited from not the strongest edition of League Two, shall we say. I think we've seen stronger sides in League Two in years gone by, and that's not to discredit them. That's just my opinion on the league this season. I've not seen many sides when I've been watching Carlisle and been amazed by them performance-wise. Walsall were decent when we played them. They had to come back from behind, bizarrely. But they did it, and they did it quite well. I definitely think they've got some great players. I agree with you on Nathan Lowe being a special talent. I actually think that has hurt them quite a lot in recent weeks. I think they do look a slightly less dangerous side for his loss, which you would expect. But I actually think another pivotal figure in that team, and someone that often wears the captain's armband for them, is Jamil Matt. And I was really concerned to hear that he had picked up an injury for them and will be out for a few weeks, because I think he, as much as he does contribute with goals, I think he's got 8 or 9 this season. It's the experience, it's the link-up play, it's the intelligence. For ages, he's been one of the best players at this level, hasn't he? Sure. and he's been involved in promotion campaigns and stuff like that. So Matt Sadler's he kept his cards close to his chest with how long Matt's going to be out for. He said, I don't think it's going to be a really long one. Might just be days or weeks, but he was missing in midweek. And I thought they were pretty toothless there by Walsall standards, less than half a goal of XG created. Across these 2 defeats, they've only managed 6 shots on target, which for league leaders is certainly not up to the level. And then just also what you said about their defensive worries, not worries per se, but then maybe not watertight defensively.
Sure.
I have to just say though, and I'm doubting my own point a little bit here, I'm not absolutely thrilled with the form Salford are in. I must say they're on a little bit of a weak run. Having been on a brilliant run prior to that to surge up the table, they're now wobbling and faltering a little bit. They drew with Newport in midweek, who I've just absolutely berated. So it's only fair that I do bring that up and say that was a poor result for them. But as I mentioned, they created over 2 goals worth of XG in that game. They had a red card. So they were definitely, if one team was going to go and win that, it was far and away Salford. I like Carl Robinson. I know he splits opinion, but I think he's a good character and good for the game. And knows how to laugh at himself and stuff as well.
Yeah.
And I do really admire the way he managed to turn this Salford side around, because when I saw them against Carlisle, I was not impressed with the way they played, but then they went on this barnstorming run afterwards. And I do think that they've got enough tools and enough threats in forward areas to maybe just take advantage of a Walsall side who, for the first time in a long time, might just be doubting themselves a little bit. So that's my.
Do you know what it is, though, Matt? I think that by far Salford have got the vast majority of their points, I think, in the time between Man City getting drawn in the cup and them playing Man City in the FA Cup, because there's a massive motivational factor in terms of facing Manchester City and putting themselves in the shop window and trying to impress Pep Guardiola and all that kind of thing. And I think that for strikers like Cole Stockton, who maybe have struggled with motivation in the past, I don't think it's a massive coincidence that in that sort of short time frame they caught fire, and Stockton, for instance, looked a bit like his 21-22 Morecambe form. But then since the Man City defeat, the results and the form has kind of dropped off a bit. So I'm not sure I really see Salford City in the promotion equation. I don't see them finishing in the top 7. So yeah, I think
I'm not sure I do either, if I'm honest, Gab. I agree with you. I think they will just fall a little bit short of that playoff mix. I was more looking to take Walsall on this week. We often say with our selections, it's more because of this team than this team. It's more, I'm interested to see how Walsall respond to this setback without Lowe, without Matt.
They have got Ethan Wheatley on loan from Man United.
They have, but I think it's just I just think when you take someone like Matt out of the fold, that, like I say, it's not so much just what he does on the pitch, but it's his experience and his.
Sure.
I feel like he's a really big character in that side, and I can't fail but be impressed with him, the way he handles himself and the player he is. I think when you lose a big player like that, I think of my own team, when we lose big players, it does have an impact on the team in the short term. So we shall see. I think we both made quite good cases there. I will say, I think. If I was listening, I'd probably think I'll just sit that game out then. But we'll see. It'll be an interesting one to watch. And let us know in the comments, definitely, if you have an opinion on that, which way you would side. That is it then. That for this week's EFL Betting Show. I hope you've enjoyed listening. Gab, if I was putting you on the spot with one of your 3, maybe I've hopefully talked you down a little bit on Walsall. I don't know. What would your nap be this weekend?
Can you get the 3 up for me? Have you got the?
I've not got my graphic because I incorrectly put you on Luton, so I don't want to pull the incorrect graphic up on the screen and do that to you again. You've got Sheffield Wednesday to beat Luton, Wycombe to beat Cambridge, or Walsall to beat Salford. So you could go whichever way you like with those.
I'll go with Wycombe to win at Cambridge at 10-11.
Okay, Wycombe is the nap for Gab. Then I'll just bring that up like that one so you can see that again. And I do have a graphic for myself where I don't think I've got any of the selections wrong, so I'll pull that one up on screen for you. That is my picks for this coming weekend. As I said when saying it, Wrexham beat Crawley with over 2.5 goals. I'm expecting a big reaction. I think Phil Parkinson has played one of his trump cards, questioning his players' attitude and effort. And I think that doing that against a Crawley side who do look very vulnerable at the back at times, it could prove a bit of a masterstroke.
Yeah, I think that 2-1 would be my favourite of your 3.
Thank you. I like Wycombe for yourself as well. So maybe that's the double. Maybe people should play the double, and you'll get around 5-1 on that off the top of my head. So that could be the way to go. Hopefully better results than last week.
Didn't it, Matt?
It was, it was. Thankfully, I've placed enough doubles over the years to be able to do that. As a few people watching will attest. Not many of them win though. But that's it for this week's EFL Betting Show. I hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you're backing in the comments. Myself and Gab will be back next week, hopefully on Twitter. I will keep trying to address this issue, but if not, you can rest assured you'll see us on YouTube. One day we will return. We will, and it'll be a triumphant and glorious return. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again very soon here on the Odds Now YouTube channel.